The music inside the restaurant was soft, the kind that blends into the background so completely that people forget it's even there. Glasses clinked lightly, low conversations filled the air, and the warm lighting gave everything a polished, expansive feel. It was the kind of place where people didn't just come to eat, they came to be seen. And tonight, every table was full. Marcus stepped through the front doors with a calm, steady pace, holding a small delivery bag in one hand. He wore simple black clothing, nothing flashy, just clean and practical. To anyone watching, he looked like another delivery driver making a routine stop. But the moment he walked in, the energy shifted just slightly. The hostess glanced up, her polite smile appearing automatically, but fading just as quickly when she noticed the bag in his hand. "Deliveries go through the back," she said, already pointing toward a hallway without asking any questions. Marcus stopped for a moment, looking at her, then calmly replied, "I'm not here for a delivery." The hostess blinked, slightly thrown off. Well then, do you have a reservation?" Marcus didn't answer immediately. He looked around the restaurant, taking in the space, the staff, the rhythm of the place. Then he said quietly, "I'm expected." That answer didn't help her. "Sir, we're fully booked tonight," she said, her tone tightening slightly. "If you don't have a reservation, I can't seat you." A couple standing nearby glanced over, sensing the tension. One of the waiters slowed his steps just enough to listen. Moments like this always attracted attention, even when people pretended they didn't. Marcus adjusted his grip on the bag slightly. "I'm not here to dine," he said. Now the confusion turned into suspicion. "Then I really need you to use the back entrance," she replied, this time more firmly. Before Marcus could respond, a man from across the room stood up from a table. He was dressed sharply, clearly someone important in the restaurant. He walked over quickly, his expression already annoyed. "What's going on?" he asked. The hostess turned to him immediately. "He says he's not a deliverer, but he doesn't have a reservation." The man looked Marcus up and down once, quickly, like he had already made his decision.
Yeah.
"Deliveries go through the back," he said without hesitation. Marcus met his eyes calmly. "I told her, I'm not here for a delivery." The man crossed his arms. "Then what are you here for?" There was a brief pause, the kind that builds tension without anyone raising their voice. Marcus spoke simply, "I'm here to see the kitchen." That got a reaction. The man let out a short laugh. "The kitchen isn't open to the public." "I'm not the public," Marcus replied. That line landed, but not the way Marcus intended. The man's expression hardened. "Look, I don't have time for this. Either you tell me who you are, or you need to leave." A few more people were watching now. Not openly, but enough to feel it. The room had shifted again, just slightly, but noticeably. Marcus didn't move. He didn't raise his voice. He just stood there, calm, steady, like someone who had already seen this moment play out before. "I was invited," he said. "By who?" the man asked immediately. Marcus held his gaze. "The owner." The man laughed again, louder this time. "I am the owner." That was the moment. The moment where everything could either settle or escalate. Marcus nodded slowly, like he expected that answer. "Then I guess we should talk," he said. The man shook his head. "No, I think you should leave." He turned slightly toward the hostess. "Call security." The word hung in the air. Security. It wasn't shouted. It didn't need to be. The tension in the room tightened instantly. Conversations slowed. A couple near the window stopped eating altogether, watching more openly now. Marcus took a small breath, then said quietly, "You might want to check again." The man didn't even look back. "I don't need to check anything." That confidence was solid, unshaken, and completely wrong. A few seconds later, one of the servers approached quickly, holding a phone. "Sir, you might want to see this," he said, handing it over. The man looked irritated, but took the phone anyway. "What is it?" The server didn't answer, he just waited. The man looked down at the screen, and everything changed. His expression didn't shift all at once. It happened in stages. First confusion, then recognition, then something else entirely. Something heavier. He looked up slowly. "At Marcus Carter?" he asked. Marcus nodded once. "Yes." Silence. Not the soft kind. The kind that stops everything. The man looked around briefly, like he needed to reset his understanding of the entire situation. Then back at Marcus. "Why didn't you say that?" he asked, his voice lower now. Marcus gave a small, calm response. "You didn't ask." That line hit harder than anything else so far. Because it was true. The man ran a hand through his hair, suddenly aware of how many people had been watching. I didn't realize," he said. Marcus nodded slightly. "I know." The same words, but now they carried weight. Real weight. The hostess looked down at the floor, her earlier confidence completely gone. The server stepped back quietly, sensing the shift had already happened. What are you doing here?" the man asked. Marcus glanced toward the kitchen doors. I'm the consultant you hired, he said. Another silence. Shorter. Sharper. You here to review the restaurant, Marcus continued. The man swallowed. Tonight? Marcus nodded. Tonight? The reality settled over the room like a slow wave. The man who had just been told to leave was the one evaluating everything. The one with the power. The one who would decide what happened next. The owner straightened his posture slightly, trying to recover some control. Of course, he said quickly. We've been expecting you. Marcus didn't respond to that, because they hadn't. Not really. Let me show you the kitchen, the man added, his tone completely different now. Marcus looked at him for a moment, then said calmly, You already did. The man froze. Marcus gestured lightly around the room. I've seen enough. That landed deeper than anything else. Because it wasn't about the food. It wasn't about the menu. It was about what happened the moment he walked in. The owner's face tightened slightly. If this is about earlier, it is, Marcus said. Simple, direct, unavoidable. The room stayed quiet, but not frozen anymore. It was listening, learning, watching. Marcus stepped forward slightly, setting the delivery bag down on a nearby table. You know what the problem is? He said calmly. The owner didn't answer, because he already knew. Marcus continued, his voice steady, controlled, but clear enough for the people nearby to hear. You judged my role before you understood my presence. No anger, no raised voice, just truth. And that judgment shaped how you treated me, Marcus added. The owner nodded slowly, unable to deny it. I made a mistake, he said. Marcus shook his head slightly. No, he replied. You made a decision. That distinction mattered a lot, because mistakes are accidental. Decisions are chosen. The owner looked down briefly, then back up. I want to fix this, he said. Marcus held his gaze. You can't fix what already happened, he said. You can only change what happens next. Another pause. The kind that forces reflection, not reaction. The owner nodded again, this time slower. I understand. Marcus looked around the restaurant one more time. At the staff, at the guests, at the space that felt different now than it did 10 minutes ago. Good, he said. Then he picked up his bag again and walked toward the kitchen doors. Not rushed, not dramatic, just moving forward. Because sometimes the real review doesn't happen in the kitchen. It happens the moment someone walks through the door. The kitchen door swung open with a soft push, and the atmosphere inside was completely different from the dining area. The calm elegance of the restaurant faded into controlled chaos. Chefs moved quickly between stations, flames rose briefly from pans, orders were called out in sharp, precise tones, and the rhythm of the place felt intense but organized. Marcus stepped inside without hesitation, his eyes moving across every detail. He didn't interrupt anyone, he didn't announce himself, he simply observed. A few of the kitchen staff glanced at him briefly, noticing the unfamiliar face, but no one stopped working. In a professional kitchen, movement mattered more than curiosity. Still, word traveled fast. Within seconds, the head chef looked up from the pass, his eyes narrowing slightly as he tried to figure out who Marcus was. Who's that? One of the line cooks whispered. The head chef wiped his hands on a towel and walked toward Marcus, his expression serious but not hostile. You lost? He asked. Marcus shook his head. No. The chef studied him for a moment, then nodded slightly, sensing something different in his calm presence. You're the consultant, aren't you? He asked quietly. Marcus met his eyes. Yes? That answer changed everything, but unlike the front of house, the reaction here was more controlled. There was no visible panic, no sudden shift in tone. Just a quiet acknowledgement that the stakes had just risen. The chef extended his hand. I'm Daniel. Marcus shook it. Daniel glanced briefly toward the dining room doors, then back at Marcus. I heard something happened out there. Marcus didn't respond immediately. He looked around again, watching how the team worked together, how orders moved, how communication flowed. Something always happens, he said calmly. Daniel gave a small, understanding nod. Yep, that sounds about right. For a few minutes, Marcus walked through the kitchen, stopping occasionally to observe a station more closely. He watched how dishes were plated, how ingredients were handled, how the team communicated under pressure. His focus was sharp, but his presence was quiet. At one station, a young cook hesitated slightly while plating a dish, noticing Marcus watching. His hands slowed, his confidence dropping just enough to be visible. Marcus spoke without raising his voice. Keep your pace. The cook nodded quickly and continued, regaining his rhythm. Daniel noticed that and smiled faintly. You don't say much, he said. Marcus glanced at him briefly. I don't need to. There was no arrogance in it. just clarity. After a few more minutes, Marcus stepped back toward the center of the kitchen, taking in the entire operation again. The food is solid, he said. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Just solid, Marcus nodded. Technically strong, consistent, but not memorable. Daniel crossed his arms, thinking about that. And what makes it memorable? Marcus looked toward the dining room doors again. Experience, he said. Daniel followed his gaze. He already knew where this was going. You're talking about what happened out there, he said. Marcus turned back to him. I'm talking about everything that leads up to the food. Daniel let out a slow breath. Front of house sets the tone. Yes, Marcus replied. And tonight, the tone was wrong. The kitchen quieted slightly around them, not because anyone stopped working, but because the conversation carried weight. Even those who weren't directly listening could feel it. Daniel nodded slowly. I can't control what happens out there every second. Marcus met his eyes. No, but you can control what kind of environment you allow. That landed. Daniel looked down for a moment, then back up. You're right. There was no defensiveness. Just honesty. Marcus continued. A guest's experience doesn't start at the table. It starts the second they walk in. Daniel glanced toward the door again. And if that first moment is wrong, it affects everything after Marcus finished. A brief silence followed, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was productive. The kind of silence that leads to change instead of resistance. One of the servers stepped into the kitchen briefly, looking toward Daniel. They're asking if everything's okay out there. Daniel nodded. Tell them we're good. The Sava hesitated for a second, then looked at Marcus, clearly aware now of who he was, before leaving again. Marcus watched that interaction closely. See that? He said. Daniel nodded. Yeah, they're already adjusting, Marcus added. Daniel gave a small smile. People learn fast when they realize something matters. Marcus didn't return the smile, but there was a slight shift in his expression. Not approval exactly, but acknowledgement. After a moment, Marcus picked up his bag again. Daniel noticed. You leaving? Marcus nodded. For now. Daniel stepped closer. Will you be back? Marcus paused briefly. Yes, he said. But next time, I won't need to explain why I'm here. Daniel understood what that meant. Next time, he said, we'll be ready. Marcus held his gaze for a second, then gave a small nod. As he walked back toward the dining room, the energy felt different again. Not tense this time, but aware. The hostess stood straighter. The staff moved with more intention. Even the guests seemed quieter, like they had witnessed something they hadn't expected. Marcus didn't stop on his way out. He didn't look back. He simply walked through the same doors he had entered earlier. But this time, the space behind him wasn't the same. Because sometimes the most important review isn't written on paper. It's felt in the way a place changes after you leave.